Hi everyone, it's Diana,
And I'm Nick.
and it's Tuesday on Facebook, on the interwebs, which means it's Tuesdays with Team RCIA. And today we have a kind of interesting topic, kind of a meta topic, because the hope is on the horizon, and we're looking at returning to normal. But what does that mean in terms of RCIA?
Yeah, so from here we can see the end of the pandemic. We're still here in California, we're still in lockdown, but some of the projections are that everybody have enough vaccines by the end of May. And so what we want to talk about is how's that the compromises that we have made because of the pandemic. I feel like maybe we're in a little bit of danger that we might make some of those permanent, or we might have gotten too used to the convenience of them. And so we wanted to discuss that a little bit. You know, there's two dangers with the pandemic. One is the danger of health, so we need to do everything we can to keep people safe. But there is also the danger of convenience. There's a lot of convenience in the way that we have set up um, our technology,
Mm-hmm.
and is that has been a saving grace throughout the pandemic. Is it's something we want to continue to rely on
Yeah.
once we're able to gather safely.
Yes, and we recognize this because we've been getting recently in the past month or so, we've been getting emails and questions from people asking, we did such and such a ritual virtually this year and it worked really well. Maybe we're going to do that again next year. Or, do we really have to have people sign the Book of the Elect? It worked so well this year, but when we didn't do it,
It
and
was more convenient.
yes, so we're starting to hear that kind of convenience language creep in, and we just want to maybe start being more aware of that and look further into the future and see what conveniences do we want to bring with us that really help grow what we're doing in terms of catechumenate ministry, and what conveniences do we want to let go of that really are for convenience sake but not for conversion sake. Okay.
So that emphasis on conversion, I think, is really important. So that and we when we're dealing with catechumens, when we're dealing with folks who are new to the disciplines of the faith, then everything that we can do to help them encounter Christ in a fuller way, in a way that leads to deeper conversion. That's what our goal is. It's
Yeah.
not getting through the rites for the sake of checking off a box and saying, well, they did that right, so therefore they met the qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
It's for bringing them into an encounter with the risen Christ. And and it's not like that cannot happen virtually, but it's really, really hard, and it's certainly not as full as an in-person experience, an in-person gathering.
Yeah. And so especially and we've been having this conversation in other circles, in liturgy circles, in ecclesiology circles, and in the broader public scheme of, online liturgies. Are they really liturgical? Are we really participating in them? And that's the same thing with the RCIA. The RCIA is foundationally a liturgical rite. And so, in this past year, when we've had to do not just our catechetical sessions, not just breaking open the word, not, everything has been online. How are we going to invite our catechumens and candidates into that encounter of conversion once we can get back together? Will we continue to use our online technology as a means for conversion, or will it be more of a means of convenience for us or even for the catechumens and candidates themselves?
In Pope Francis's latest letter to the world, he talks about this issue of convenience, and he's making the point that faith and living the faith is basically an act of inconvenience,
Mm-hmm.
and he centers a lot of his teaching in this letter. Um, I can never pronounce the Latin, but it's
Fratelli tutti,
fratelli
or
tutti, but
something
for
like that.
fraternity Fraternity and society. In other words, he's trying to say, or fraternity and social friendship. What he centers a lot of that teaching around the parable of the
Good
Good
Samaritan.
Samaritan who winds up helping a person who was attacked by robbers. And you know the story, right? There's this guy laying on the street, and all the really important people pass him by. So the priest walks by the injured person, the Levite walks by the injured person, the high society people keep walking by the injured person, and this Samaritan, and we got to remember that a Samaritan was really an outsider, an outcast in the community that Jesus was talking to. So he was saying this person that you wouldn't even give the time of day to, that you think of as less than human, this outcast, he's the one who stopped to help the injured person.
So in other words, the professional religion people walked right by, and the non-professional, non quote unquote religious person did what our faith calls us to do.
Yeah. And so Pope Francis says about that, we cannot overlook this detail. So Pope Francis is speaking as a religious person, right? And he's saying, we can't overlook the fact that Jesus is talking to me, the Pope. He's talking to you, the Director of Religious Education. He's talking to you as an RCIA team member. He's saying it shows that belief in God and the worship of God is not enough to ensure that we're actually living in a way that's pleasing to God. A believer may be untrue to everything that his faith demands of him and yet think he is close to God and better than others. So what he's saying is we can't just rely on the convenience of like an intellectual assent to faith. We have to have that, of course, but we also have to have a commitment to go out of our way to help those who are most in
Yeah.
need.
And so we can translate this in terms of our CIA as, when we do the the mandates of the ritual, when we do the rites, when we do dismissal, when we do a ongoing model of formation, is that out of a motivation for conversion, for helping people enter into that um, inconvenient way of life that our faith calls us to? Or are we cutting corners and saying, well, we can't really do it the way the right says, so let's just do it
We can't.
an easier
I
way?
hear it said as we can't do the ideal,
Yes.
as though the ideal is the church has given us something that's out of reach and unavailable to us normal people to be able to do.
So it's good to be aware of what the ideal is, and it's good to be aware of how sometimes we're unable to do the ideal, but the next statement needs to be, so what can we do to move closer to the ideal this year? Rather than, well, then, let's throw our hands up and say we can't do it
Or do
that
we
way.
really have to, or is it really
Yeah.
that important?
So it's something that we want to consider now that things are starting to move in a good direction in terms of this pandemic, at least for the general population, and to see what we can do. So some of the things that we're hearing from your comments is that the the online meetings, the Zoom meetings, has been a blessing, and it has also shown us that we can't get caught up in the RCIA is Wednesday night 7:30 in the parish hall. It's shown us that RCIA is happening all the time, every day of the week. And how can we connect with our catechumens, our candidates, their sponsors, when they're able to connect? And how do we connect them to what is happening in the parish in whatever form that is, on whatever day that is? So it's teaching us to break out of that convenience of RCIA as a 1 or 2 hours per week on a Wednesday night. So
But
that's one thing we can take with us, but leave behind the convenience of, well, we never have to meet together again.
yeah, we don't want to say, oh, it's all going to be online meetings from now on because that's so easy for everybody. We want to not be inconvenient for the sake of being inconvenient, but when we can be face to face with one another, we can actually
Mm-hmm.
touch one another and hear one another's actual voice and not a mediated computer voice. When it's actual in-person contact, the chance for encounter is much greater. So that's true in any of our kind of work as the parish, any kind of formation sessions we have,
Mm-hmm.
any kind of social gatherings that we have, but it's especially true in our liturgical gatherings. And so all of the rites of the RCIA, they really must be celebrated in person. There's no substitute for that. In that way, it's similar to Mass. We can watch Mass online, but we can't really be at Mass. Once the pandemic has passed, the obligation to show up for Sunday Mass will return. It's been dispensed for most of
Mm-hmm.
us now because it's unsafe. But once it's safe to gather, no bishop is going to say, well, if you can just stay home and watch it on your computer screen. And it's the same with the RCA rituals. At least for the catechumens, they need to be physically present in the room for the celebration. Now we can go ahead and stream it for folks who can't be there. Just, if there's people that, not the catechumens who are ill, but parishioners who are ill or unable to get to the liturgy, we want to stream it so they can participate as best they can. But for the actual subject of the rite, they need to be present
Mm-hmm.
in the room for the
Yeah.
celebration.
Because it's incarnational,
Yes.
that's one of our foundational teachings, that our bodies matter because God became one of us, became human, took on flesh. And so how does our physical body symbolize what we believe in our faith? And so that physical presence is important. Also, the sense of going back to the idea of convenience, it can get really convenient to log in to watch mass and say, even when the dispensation is there, when we really cannot and should not be gathering, we'll say, okay, we're going to gather for mass online, and look, we can shop for the mass that we like, or the one that has the homilist that we like, or
Can
we can,
drink my coffee.
yeah, we can have breakfast, or.
Don't have to get dressed.
But here's the biggest convenience that we may be tempted to fall into. When we're watching Mass online, we don't have to be inconvenienced by people we don't want to
Yeah.
gather with. So the Samaritan, the whoever it is who is the Samaritan in our modern day world, we don't have to gather with people who bring their noisy kids. We don't have to gather with the person who just tried to run us over in the parking lot. We don't have to gather with people we don't want to associate with, when we can watch Mass online in the comfort of our home with people that we actually like. So that's the sense, that's the inconvenience that all of us needs to hunger to get back to when we're talking about our liturgical rites. And it's the inconvenience that we're shaping our catechumens into when we are celebrating the rites with them, and making all of the possible ways of bringing those rites incarnationally to life for the catechumens and for the entire assembly, because it shapes us into what we believe. So, that's just a kind of a big question that we want to pose on this in the middle of Lent here. Nick wrote a really great article on here, and it quotes some good passages from Pope Francis, and we're so happy that the Pope has had such a successful trip. Talking about inconvenience, a lot of people were saying, "Oh my gosh, why is he going to Iraq? It could be dangerous, the pandemic, everything." And the Pope said, sometimes you have to take a risk because our faith is that important. The risk of making peace, even in places that might not be peaceful, especially in places there. So he's our model for inconvenient faith here. I'm going to
So
put that
yeah,
link.
go take a look at the article. Diana's putting the link in, and if you feel so moved, write a comment
Mm-hmm.
on the website or here in the Facebook conversation about what you thought of it and what you think about this idea of striving for the ideal, even if it's inconvenient,
Yeah.
striving for a worship life and a formation life with the catechumens that's more about encounter and conversion than it is meeting individual convenience.
Mm-hmm. And on the corollary to that, what inconveniences are we placing before the catechumens and candidates that don't need to be there?
Mm.
So the on the flip side, if you can't make Wednesday night 7:30 RCIA, let's go find a parish where they have an RCIA that you can go to. I don't think that's the kind of inconvenience our faith is calling us to.
Yeah, we
That's a
need to be
box.
flexible. When we're talking about the ideals, we're not saying be rigid,
Yeah.
but the principle, we always want to focus on the principles. So the principle is in-person gathering, in-person ritual, encounter with people who may be different than us, opportunities for conversion. And that doesn't always happen strictly on Wednesday night at 7:30 or Sunday at 10:30. We need to find ways to make it happen for folks who have real lives. They may have 2 or 3 jobs. Maybe they're truckers and they have to travel. It's just we have to accommodate people as best we can, but we're not going to set up, the point we want to make is we're not going to set up a compromise as the primary way we do things. The compromise is always with a goal toward getting toward closer and closer and closer to the ideal.
So, what is today? Today is like the fourth week of Lent.
I think so.
I think.
Time has no
Oh
meaning.
gosh, I know. Anyways, we're almost upon Easter Vigil is almost upon us, and there's always questions about the vigil and little details like that. And so we're giving you a little free gift here. A gift. Gifts are always free, so it's redundant to say free gift. But handout 6 vigil questions, common vigil questions that people ask about the RCIA.
So you can use that as a bulletin insert or team training or formation for your seekers or whatever, but it's free for you, so go there and download that.
And there you go. So we are in the middle of, we just started today, our Team RCIA quarterly planning meeting. Nick and I, if you've ever wondered the company Team RCIA and where our regional offices are,
This is our international intergalactic headquarters right behind us here.
and the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the janitor, the tech guru, and
IT, travel consultant.
you're looking, and the makeup artists. Here it is. There you go. But we also have other great support people around the world who have roles in the mission of Team RCIA. But what Nick and I do as the main people here is every quarter we try to get together to look bigger, to look at the bigger goals of Team RCIA and how we can continue to support you in the mission of conversion for catechumens and candidates and your entire community. So that's what we're doing.
And pre-pandemic, we would
Yes.
we would leave here because we get too caught up in details when we're in our home office. So we would leave here and go someplace fun with a nice view and a nice restaurant and a nice bar, and we would really have a kind of a working retreat away from home. But because of COVID right now, we're still in lockdown here at the highest level of lockdown in Santa Clara County. So we're trying to do it here and not get too caught up in the folding the clothes and vacuuming the floor these next couple days.
But we have it. One of the blessings of doing this is that we get to look back and see the progress that has been made. So one of the first things we do is the successes, and really the consistent success that we have experienced is you. You have been a constant support to the work of Team RCIA, and you continue to bring your wisdom, your questions, your concerns, your stories to this community. And so we are so grateful for your essential role in this ministry, not just with us, but for your parish communities. So thank you for that. If no one says that enough to you, please let us do that here. Thank you for what you do. Okay? All right.
All right, everyone. It's lunchtime here, so we're going to go. And we wish you all the best. We wish you really prayerful and peaceful and wonderful Lent. And we
Mm-hmm.
hope this is the last Lent that we'll ever have to talk about pandemic.
I know. But we'll see you next week, God willing. Okay?
Take
Thanks.
care. Bye bye.
Bye.